I'm proud to serve as the director of the Division of Child and Community Health in the Child Health Specialty Clinics. And we are a part of the Stead Family Department of Pediatrics here at the University of Iowa. And this division has a very long legacy of helping some of Iowa's most vulnerable children and families. So, and again, most of you know this, but our clinics provide gap-filling clinical care and care coordination and peer-to-peer support for all of the children in Iowa with special healthcare needs. So we have a dozen regional centers and some satellite locations. So we serve children in all 99 counties. But in addition to our direct services, we also proudly offer a family leadership development through IFLTI and digital storytelling and storytelling for family leaders. And these programs really help families amplify their voices and advocate for meaningful change. So Jean is our Associate Director for Family Partnerships. So she's been really a huge advocate and very resourceful in trying to make sure we have funds or making our funds go farther, our diminishing funds. And so she has kind of overseen a lot of this. But over the past decade, starting with Martha, but now Diane and Sean and Rachel and Allison have trained over 100 family leaders that have gone on to do great things both at their community and regional and even national levels. So today you'll hear more about the history of IFLTI and the power of family involvement in disability advocacy. So I'll let Diane take it from here.
We are so grateful for everybody here in person, and for those of you online, thank you for joining us. We are incredibly proud of this training program and its grads, and we'll hear about the genesis of the training and testimonies from the grads today. But we're really here to celebrate the family voice and what can happen when the family of a child with a special healthcare need speaks up. So our agenda today is first we're going to revisit and celebrate an example of family professional partnership and the amazing change that it brought to our country. We'll have a little time of discussion following that. Then we'll hear about the family training itself, its foundations, and some outcomes today. And finally, we'll hear a few things from our grads, and then there'll be cake. So I'd like to begin with a video of Julie Beckett. Julie would be here today and be speaking if she was still living. She is for those of you who may not remember, Julie Beckett was the mother of Katie Beckett. Katie was the first Medicaid home and community-based waiver child. The waiver was granted in 1981 and has become a vehicle for many persons with disabilities to receive care at home in their communities. Before Katie's death in 2012, she and her mother testified numerous times before Congress and worked on many projects in an advisory capacity for the Maternal and Child Health Bureau, which is part of the Health Resources and Services Administration. She also was the first parent representative in Iowa's Title V program for children with special healthcare needs, which paved the way for today's parent employees called family navigators. I one time introduced Julie this way, and she reminded me that she was not only the first Iowa parent, but the first one in the country. So Julie would want me to note that. She helped found Family Voices, which was an organization dedicated to serving children and youth with special healthcare needs, and served as its policy coordinator for 10 years. So this excerpt from an interview we did with her just recounts how she partnered with professionals and used her voice to help create the waiver for families in our country. And in true Julie's fashion, there are a few extraneous details. So enjoy those as well.
And we were on the phone with the medical social services person. Diane Ratner was her name. And we got a hold of our state Medicaid director, and he was on the phone, and we talked to him about how important it was to get Katie home if we possibly could. And she had known about what they call an exception to policy, which is actually how Katie got home. And he said, well, you know, no one in the state of Iowa has ever gotten one. And Diane just stood right up and said, well, then we think Katie ought to be the first kind of thing. And, you know, talk about empowerment. You don't even realize you have that kind of hump behind you until somebody actually says it. So that really was, we had to fill out paperwork. We met with Congressman Tauke, who was the 2nd District Congressman at the time. He had actually been at Loras when I was at Clark, which is kind of one of those amazing things. And I'd gone to school with both of his sisters who went to Clark, which was really kind of fun. And none of them were married, none of them, you know. So it was kind of an interesting aha moment for us when he came to visit Katie. And he was just amazed at how well Katie looked and how well she did. And, you know, he flew back to Washington, D.C. with our paperwork and hand delivered it through the Department of Health and Human Services with his staff people all the way following him along. And this is where things got very interesting. So that took the summer of 1981. And Katie was, over the summer, we wrote this paperwork up, did all that kind of stuff. We did a lot of gathering of statistics. And we found out that home care would cost us about 1/3 of what it was currently costing Medicaid in the hospital. And that was the winning thing. That's how we got this whole thing passed. But still, even though Congressman Tauke walked it through, he got a letter saying that they didn't pay for, Medicaid didn't pay for home care, and they were sorry. They couldn't do anything about it. And Congressman Tauke was getting on the plane with Vice President Bush the next day, and he hand delivered this letter that basically said, her parents want her home, the doctors think she'll do well at home, and we believe, and it'll cost 1/6 the current cost we're paying for Medicaid. Well, that convinced Vice President Bush, who also knew about children. As you all may be aware or may not, you may not be aware, Vice President Bush lost a daughter at 3 years of age to leukemia. And so he was kind of sensitive to this whole issue to begin with. It's nice to be able to meet with a dad, you know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he was great and really very helpful, and went to the Oval Office the next morning after coming back to Washington, D.C. with Congressman Tauke after speaking at Iowa State University. And he said to the president, Mr. President, we need to find this little girl and fix the problem. And they talked for a little while, and then the president picked up the phone, hit the button that said HICFA, which is the Healthcare Finance Administration, which is what CMS is right now, was before. And this woman who answered the phone had been a teacher as well, but she taught nursing at the University of Michigan and had just been appointed Medicaid director at HICFA, or director of HICFA. So she knew, and she said to the president, because of course she didn't realize that she wasn't supposed to answer back to the president. She said, you understand, Mr. President, if we fix this for this little girl, we have to fix it for everybody else. And his response was, well, you know, Carolyn, it's your job. And she said, thank you very much. That's all I needed to hear. So she gathered a group in the secretary's dining room, and they met for 72 hours. The assistant to the Medicaid director was a little ticked off about this because he'd only been married 2 weeks. His wife didn't understand why he had to stay away for 72 hours. He became a very good friend of ours. And of course, she understood as soon as everything started happening with Katie. But it's just kind of one of those things where it's the right people at the right place at the right time. And she just happened to have a history because she used to send her little nurses over to take care of these kids who lived in hospitals, you know. And nobody had any idea how much this was all costing the government because nobody ever looked at it. And we just have to be the one that gathered the statistics that helped them understand how important it was. Anyway, so
the full video we will have running during the coffee hour. So if you would like to see all of it, it's also online. We are incredibly honored to have Representative Tom Tauke here with us and his wife, Beverly. Thank you so much. They came from South Carolina just to be with us today. We've asked him to share about his memories of working with Julie on this partnership and also comment and challenge us on the importance of family involvement with advocacy. I have this bio from the Loris alumni paper. Thomas Tauke describes himself as a follower of Jesus, a husband, father, and grandfather. While he and his wife Beverly now live in Fort Mill, South Carolina, just a short walk from their 3 young grandchildren, Representative Tauke's roots remain firmly planted in Iowa. Representative Tauke's career in public service began in a way he never anticipated. Upon finishing law school at the University of Iowa in 1974, Representative Tauke was unexpectedly drafted to run for the House of Representatives, making a last-minute decision on a Friday night before being nominated the next day. Though he initially lost that election, a special election was held soon after and secured him a seat in the Iowa legislature, a role he fondly calls the best job I've ever had. 4 years later, he advanced to represent Northeast Iowa 2nd District in the U.S. House, where he embraced the privilege of making a difference on a national scale. Following 12 impactful years in Congress, Representative Tauke transitioned to the role in telecommunications, eventually becoming Executive Vice President of External Affairs and Communication at Verizon. Welcome. We're so glad to have you here. There's some Zaerr in case.
Well, thank you very much, Diane. It really is a pleasure to be here. When I look around this room, and as I've met several of you, it reminds me of an old Kentucky farmer who had a mule, and he decided to enter the mule in the Kentucky Derby. Well, his neighbors said, "You really don't expect this mule to win, do you?" And he said, "Well, no, but I think the association with the horses will do him some good." And that's the way I feel today. Any association I have with all of you will do me a lot of good, and it already has. I see all of you as heroic, really heroic, because of the work that you have done and are doing in support of those parents who have children with disabilities, those who are working so hard to be able to create a positive experience in life for their children and their families. They have a tremendous burden, as so many of you know, and for you to be able to help them and work with them and advocate for them, it is a heroic thing that you do. So thank you for what you are doing, and it is my pleasure to be here. You know, I could probably get my glasses out, you know. Age does certain things to you. I think it is fair to say that probably the most important thing I did in Congress was the work with Katie Beckett and her family. And the story of Katie Beckett is really a story not only of Katie, who was grew up to be a delightful young woman, but also a story of Julie, obviously, and her husband, Mark. I recall when I first met Julie, it was at the behest of Hazel Wharf, who was a person who worked in my Cedar Rapids office. And Hazel was a wonderful woman, kind of a mother to everybody, if you know what I mean, a mother to everybody. She just had this instinct to know what was important, how to move forward with the project that she might undertake. Well, when she met with Julie, something happened. I'm not sure exactly what, but I know that Hazel became as strong an advocate for Katie as Julie was. And so she grabbed me and said, you know, you have to meet Julie and Mark Beckett. So I met with them. And then they were, you know, obviously very impressive. And their story was so heartbreaking. And so I went to the hospital to see Katie. And, you know, it just was so clear that she could be at home, as where her parents wanted her to be. The doctors and the nurses were all telling me she should be at home. And then I turned around and I thought, well, I'm not sure exactly what to do, but we've got to figure something out here. And so, as Julie said far better than I could, a lot of work went into trying to work through the system. But working through the system, as all of you know, can be a real challenge sometimes, even when you're a congressman. And so we decided, after knocking our heads against the wall a little bit, to go higher up. So it just so happened, and sometimes the Holy Spirit does wonderful things, I think, but it just so happened I was flying to Iowa with Vice President Bush. So I talked to him, and as Julie indicated, he had a heart for children, and especially those who were facing healthcare difficulties. And so he grabbed onto this issue, and as she noted, involved the president. And what Julie didn't say, at least in this portion of the clip, is that eventually President Reagan championed this cause and talked about it publicly, and as a result, the Katie Beckett waiver came into place. And so many families and children have benefited from that since that time. I think it is fair to say that while the Katie Beckett waiver has had a very positive impact for many, the challenges are still huge. The challenges are huge for those families who are dealing with children who have healthcare difficulties. I look around today, and I've looked at some of the material you sent to me, Diane, about what parents tell you about what's going on in the healthcare arena right now and what the challenges the families face. And, availability of care is a big issue. Finding the specialists, finding the equipment, finding the people who can help you navigate the system. This is a big challenge. Beverly and I have had our share of healthcare issues. And, I've said to her on more than one occasion, I think I'm a reasonably intelligent person. Okay. But trying to navigate through the insurance issues, through the issues of trying to find the right specialists, trying to fill out all the forms, it just is a challenge. And I think of those parents who are already burdened with the challenge of dealing with a child who has many issues, and they have to try to navigate this system. What you are doing to help them navigate the system, to train them to be advocates for themselves, for their children, for their families, and in the public policy arena is just remarkable. So congratulations to all of you for what you are doing. I do think that there are a few things that maybe I could share with you that may be helpful. And so I'm going to say a word or two about the nature of advocacy in the public policy arena. The first thing I would say to you is know your audience. I mean, whether you're in sales or you're in marketing or you're engaged in the political arena, you need to know your audience. And let me tell you something about your audience. When you get elected, you don't get any smarter. All of a sudden, you're supposed to be an expert. People think, oh, well, he's a member of Congress, so he knows all about the issues of the banking industry when the bankers come. Or he knows all about the issues of the agriculture and farmers face because he's a member of Congress. And he knows all about the auto industry. And he knows everything about all of these various entities and groups. And of course, he knows what the laws are. And he knows how the bureaucracy works. Well, members of Congress don't get any smarter when they get elected. They have to learn Okay, and most of them don't have much experience. I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't know much about the federal government when I was elected. I was a lot better by the time I left than I was when I started. Second thing you need to understand about members of Congress or state legislators for that matter, I'm saying members of Congress, but any public policy person, is they really fear that they are going to be embarrassed, especially those who are elected. They're fearful that somebody is going to go out and say, you can't believe that he didn't know anything about the price of soybeans and how the corn subsidies work. You know, how can you believe it? He didn't know anything about the environmental issues that we're dealing with on the farm. So members of Congress become fearful of embarrassment. And while this wasn't as true when I was a member of Congress, but now they also fear being set up by people deliberately trying to make them look bad. And with social media, they're fearful they're going to be filmed and it's going to be spread all over their country, and their constituents are going to, mock them. So you got to understand that they are reluctant to ask questions. They're reluctant to appear to be less than knowledgeable. Okay? So that means your first task is to educate. A dynamic of advocacy is to educate the member. Don't expect them to ask you questions. Start as if you are dealing with an 8th grader, okay? Don't use all the jargon, don't think that they understand the initials. Just give them the basics. Okay? If they know it, you'll pick up, you'll figure out that they know that and they'll lead you along. But start with the basics and educate them, okay? Now, in order to do that, you have to know what you're talking about. So that means you have to study. You have to study the issue, understand what the problem is, understand what the possible solutions may be, okay? Next thing is that you have to persuade. Now, there is nothing, if I had somebody come into my office, let's say maybe even a nurse, who would know the issues, but, it'd be just another one of the people who is telling me that we've got a problem. Well, when you're in government, you are dealing with problems all the time. And so how do you get your problem moved from the bottom or the middle of the stack to the top of the stack? Well, you do that by making it personal. So if I hadn't met Julie and Mark, I'm not sure that the issue would have moved up on my radar screen, okay? Well, each of you, because of the work you do, and those who are families, you can make it personal to a policymaker. Now, to be blunt, not all of them are going to be responsive. But you got to keep trying. You have to be having perseverance. As I often say, perseverance is a virtue. But when it comes to public policy advocacy, you need to persevere. If you try one place and it doesn't work, figure out another place to go. If you try one policymaker and it doesn't work, find another one who may listen. But you have to keep knocking on the door. Third observation I'd make is that you have to have a specific ask. So you educate, you persuade, then ask for something. I can't tell you how many times people would come to me and they'd lay out the problem. They'd do that very well. And they would persuade me that it was an issue that merited attention. But they never were able to tell me, what do you want me to do? What do you think I can do to help? Well, sometimes you go and figure it out for yourself as a policymaker. But it's so much better if somebody says, this is what I'm asking you to do. And you're much more likely to get a yes if you have a specific request than if you don't have a specific request. Okay? And there's an accountability with that, because let's say you meet with somebody, you can follow up with a letter and say, this is what I'm asking you to do. And in a sense, forces, or doesn't forces maybe isn't the right word, but it gives them a sense that they need to respond in some way. So try to the extent feasible. Sometimes you won't be able to figure out what is the right ask, but try to figure out what the right ask is. So educate, persuade, make a specific request for action. I think that what you are doing with social media and video, trying to educate people how to use that, is really important. On the one hand, as I alluded to earlier, social media can be an obstacle because members of Congress, other policymakers are afraid to venture very far from the areas in which they feel comfortable. But on the other hand, social media can be a great thing for you because it helps, obviously, tell a story. And if you have a video that tells the story, that's golden these days. And I think that in addition to being able to tell the story, it helps you build a network of people who can work with you. Second thing I would say to you is that it's important, I think, to be able to bring others along with you, to verify and support what you are saying. So in the case of Julie Beckett and Mark and Katie, they had doctors who said, yes, this is what we need. They had nurses who said, yes, this is what we need. And so when you have other people who are knowledgeable and are credible and can support whatever you are seeking and the ask that you are making, that also is enormously helpful. So the bottom line is that you're doing wonderful work. And all of you who are working with and advocating for children, God bless you. You are just doing wonderful thing for families and for children. And I think it's why we're here, to be able to help one another to the extent that it's feasible to do so. So I am very proud to be a little part of your community. I know that being a male, I'm kind of in the minority. Women do rule the world in many ways. But nevertheless, it's just a great honor to be associated with all of you and to be associated with this cause. And I do ask God to bless each and every one of you for the good work that you do. With that,
If you just want to stay up
Sure.
here, Sean, will you take the mic around here for us? This one? Really? Thanks so much to Julie for running all our tech for us. What kind of questions would you have or comments too?
or advice.
I want to take this moment to recognize Representative Art State and his wife, Susan. He has been very helpful to us. He's one of the legislators who would come to our training and let us practice our asks on him.
Terrific.
He would give us feedback, and you'll see a list of the many who have done that, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Would you have a word? Anything you would like to say?
You all are awesome. You all are really awesome. I don't know if you know that or not, but you are. I'm glad you're celebrating your 10 years. I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to hear from parents. That was a moving experience for me. So thank you.
I remember the tears, actually, Art. I remember tears in your eyes when you listened to families. Is Deborah Waldron online by any chance? I don't. Okay. I wanted to recognize her too. She was our Dr. Curtis when this began, and it was a gift from her. Martha will tell us about it that got us started. So I wanted to give her a chance to say hello if she was here. Anyone, would you like to interact at all?
Thank you so much for speaking with us today. I am wondering if you have any tips on working across the aisle in the climate we are currently in right now.
Well, that's another big challenge right now. First of all, I think that when it comes to, there are a lot of issues where members of Congress work across the aisle with each other. And there are some big issues where there's this deep division. But there are a lot of areas where members of Congress work across the aisle together. You know, haven't looked recently at statistics, but probably 85% of the legislation that moves through the Congress moves through with majority support from both sides of the aisle. It's there are some hot button issues that divide everybody and divide in a way that is much more onerous than it was when I was a member of Congress. So that's a challenge. But you have an issue which I think resonates with both sides of the aisle. Don't go in, as a partisan. Go in as an advocate for children. And, as I said, not everybody will be responsive, but most members, most policymakers are going to be responsive. The challenge is they probably aren't sure what to do, And so if you can help them figure out what to do, and by your mere presence, you're going to give them some motivation to do it. That, I think, is what you're attempting to accomplish. But I don't allow the partisan divisions to deter you.
I can quote one of my favorite Julie Beckett quotes is she would say about working across the aisle, never burn bridges because you may need to cross it sometimes. And I remembered that.
Yeah, and that's what I always thought when I was in Congress. I thought, okay, this person is going to vote against my position 9 times out of 10. But on the 10th time, I need that vote in order to be able to pass whatever I'm trying to do. Well, it's the same thing when you're an advocate. You may get turned down on a number of things, but I think maybe that 10th time when that person will come through and be the savior.
I know I'm kind of a random person that showed up in the room, but I'm a mother of a young adult that has cerebral palsy. And I think because of the efforts of this group, she got to participate in state swim because you guys changed the law from only allowing wheelchair-bound kids with disabilities to participate to allow everybody. There were some fantastic cancer patients from the University of Iowa that swam, and my daughter got to swim too, and it's made a huge impact on her life as well. So thank you, all of you that have advocated on behalf of kids with disabilities.
That is great. And just 2 quick thoughts stemming from your comment. First is that while we talk about medical care, there's so much more, obviously, in trying to create an eventful and joyful life for everyone. The second observation I'd make is I think, and I may be wrong, but I think one of the big challenges for parents is dealing with the transition from childhood to adulthood. You've got things in place, to try to make it all work, and then all of a sudden they become an adult. And then it's like starting over again. At least that's my impression. And so that is an area where I think we still have a lot of work to do. Anything else? Well, if not, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure for me to be here, and I wish you all best of Godspeed in all your work.
We hope this afternoon is informal. So if you think of additional questions and you'd like to interact, and you, Representative Tauke, as well, please do that. I'd like to call Martha Hanley to the podium now. Martha is a family member herself. She is from Cedar Rapids, and until 2020, she was the program director for Family Professional Partnerships, and really is going to give us she helped birth IFLTI, and she's going to trace how that happened within child health specialty clinics. So welcome, Martha. Here's some water.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon. And thank you, Representative Tauke, for showing us the rest of the story.
Tom is good.
Tom. for telling us the rest of the story. Those of us who had the pleasure of hearing Julie tell her story so many times, you were a figure in the room, and it's good to have the rest of the story being told to us. So it's such a pleasure to be with all of you today and to think about the beginnings of the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute. Generally speaking, a good place to start is the family story. The world of families of children with special health care needs is rich in stories. There are the stories of receiving a diagnosis, of learning how to cope and find one's people, those who truly get it. We see families go like this a lot, if they get it. There are stories of families reaching out to newcomers to the special needs world, offering friendship and support. There are stories of family leaders who collect the many stories they've heard and realize there are weak points in the system. They then work to correct the barriers to care. Harnessing the power of the family story and the experience behind it to benefit other families and systems became the mission of the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute. That training was built on the history of child health specialty clinics and the staff that listened to the family stories since its beginning in the 1930s. In every era, CHSC staff would meet families where they were, help them with needed services, and empower them to become leaders in their own families. IFLTI trained families to become leaders at a whole new level, but family leadership and family partnership has been practiced in this agency from the beginning. The story of IFLTI, as we started to call it, it really did roll off the tongue eventually, is the story of family leadership. Equally, it is the story of CHSC leadership who endorsed the training, allocating staff time and funding. This is the story of a true family professional partnership. Am I too close?
You can move it back.
Okay. And I wonder, could you?
Yeah, you could just click it. I forgot to give you a click.
That's okay. Right here?
There you go. And then the
Okay.
next.
Right. Thanks. I'd like to refer briefly at this point to a graphic that illustrates what I mean by family leadership as it generally progresses incrementally. You can see in this graphic concentric circles that indicate 3 levels of leadership. The inner circle refers to primary caregivers, typically parents taking leadership in their own families, and that means accepting the diagnosis, arranging for therapies, going to doctor's appointments, and organizing and establishing a new normal in their homes. Research has shown that in order for a family with a new diagnosis to do well, they have to have some contact with someone who is a little further along in the journey and doing very well. Typically, that person who is consulted is in that second ring, the community ring. So that person, having her inner ring pretty well settled and established, is in a position to reach out to newcomers in order to offer support and some consultation. Having had some training in systems, these consultants may be inspired to advocate at the policy level because they've heard again and again, having interacted with many families, that the system has broken down. Julie Beckett, fondly remembered today, was prominent in CHSC's history of family professional partnership. She was hired in 1985 as CHSC's first parent consultant, as has been mentioned. But she worked with 2 professionals. She worked with 2 nurses to craft Iowa's waiver program. Her job was to identify families who might be eligible for waiver services and to contact them, listening to their barriers to care and trying to improve their situations. She did this with her wonderful Irish warmth, which made those families feel as if they were no longer on their own. 25 years later, there were more than 30 parent consultants, then called family navigators, working in 14 regional centers around the state. They continued Julie's work of listening to families, surmounting barriers to care with them, and providing emotional support. Some had received family leadership training through the Association of Maternal and Child Health Programs in Washington, D.C. 3 of us began meeting regularly to think about the Family Navigator Network, how we could strengthen and standardize those services. We also started thinking more broadly about the role of family leaders in Title V and what was being done to enhance family capacity around the country. A statewide leadership training was not on the radar at all. In retrospect, I realized it took several intermediate steps that prepared us to launch a larger training. The first venture was building a family advisory council, which CHSC leadership greenlighted. We asked the Family Navigator Network, always an essential component of all of these training efforts, to identify family members who might have capacity to think about CHSC services. Thank you. Thank you for that. They might be ready to think about CHSC services at the community or systems level, so they could be true advisors. We needed to train these advisors in Title V services and their role as family representatives. We learned through the process of how to engage families, many of whom became longtime allies. So with this, our first leadership building project, we learned how to identify, recruit, and engage families. Step 2 was saying yes to a train the trainer opportunity offered by the Heartland Regional Genetics Collaborative, learning to deliver a care coordination training to parents of children with genetic diagnoses. From that experience, we learned the hunger of family for tools, for connection, and for support in their journeys. Finally, we started thinking about a statewide leadership training. The families we knew would embrace such a training, we believed. We thought about the training many of us had received at the national level and planned to replicate it at the state, asking national and state leaders to deliver monthly presentations on leadership topics. We approached CHSC leadership. Dr. Deborah Walden, who was leaving to work at Health Resources Services Administration, provided her blessing and funding. Our wonderful Family Navigator Network again agreed to recruit. We selected 25 of 50 applicants. When we got 50 applicants, we thought, we've got this. This is just great. The 9-month-long training launched in March 2015, delivered mostly via GoToWebinar back in the day, except for an August weekend gathering at Cornell College in Mount Vernon. We launched this on such a shoestring that we asked the trainees to double up in dorm rooms and go down the hall to brush their teeth. And they still came. After the August meeting, we lost momentum. Attendance became sporadic at the virtual presentations, and work on the community projects lagged. We finished the training and then assessed it. Among the cohort were 2 plants, we learned later. They had been sent by the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council to see if the training was any good. These 2 became our best critics and our staunchest allies. What we heard from them and from other trainees was, it is too long for busy families. Families had to travel too far to the training site. So in Mount Vernon, of course, is just east of Iowa City, Cedar Rapids. And we had people coming from Council Bluffs. That was too far. And the more room had to be given in the training to the development of family leadership at all levels. So the consensus was, we had thrown spaghetti against the wall and it made a mess, but we had started something. So I'm going to go back from that memory to this. We got to work. We talked with the 2 plants. We talked with the rest of the cohort. We talked with our kind DDD Council friends who had served as mentors and presenters. We talked with family leaders in other states. One of them was working in Massachusetts Title V, and she said that she'd had some success with a short-term in-person training. And that was something we had been warned families were not willing to do. They weren't willing to come, leave their families and stay overnight, so we'd stayed away from it. But on her advice, we decided to go with that model. We decided also not to have a lot of national and state subject matter experts. We thought we would draw on the talent that was in the team. We can study this, we can prepare, we've had good training, we can do this. But we would invite subject matter experts when it was appropriate. And at every session, we invited a family leader to tell their story. Crucial to the development of the training was the federal funding we received to hire a national consultant, and she was a lifesaver. She helped us establish a curriculum that would move from ring to ring to ring over the first 3 months, reserving that last month together as a time to celebrate the completion of their or the significant progress on their community service projects. Most importantly, she helped us to work on aims, and these were the aims that we settled on, and I wonder if they're still present. I imagine they are. First, to help trainees understand how to work with partners. And Representative Tauke, I keep hearing from you the importance of working with credible partners. And that was something that we really encouraged with the trainees. Don't start on something by yourself. See what's being done and collaborate with that person. Or talk with your friends and neighbors and see if they feel the same way as you. But make sure that you're not doing this on your own. Become aware of your own path to leadership. So there was time in that first weekend to think about, what are my strengths? Who am I? Things that in the busy life of a parent with a child with special health care needs, they didn't take time to discover. So we wanted to work with them on that so they could be their own individual brand of leader. To discover strategies for advocacy, and we've heard some today, and Senator Stade, you helped us with those when you visited us. And to prepare a community service project having impact at the community or systems level. We launched in March of 2016. This was a much smaller cohort supported by individual mentors. As we assessed it, we decided we had a sustainable model. That first new version of the training was held in Cedar Rapids. We decided that we were going to hold pretty regional trainings, although we would have trainings in Cedar Rapids and people from Fort Dodge would still come. Or we'd have trainings in Carroll and people from Cedar Rapids would attend. It was amazing because it's all about timing with families. But as we assessed it, we decided that we had a model that we could sustain. And I know it's been tweaked, because we learn every time we did a training, we learned from the trainees, we looked at external forces, and we knew how we needed to adjust. As I thought about takeaways, I came up with the following list, and I'm sure my colleagues would have their own takeaways. But one thing we discovered was the power of the personal invitation. Many trainees, having gone through a lot of struggle and trial and error, are reluctant to see themselves as leaders. In order to counteract that, we told them about our careful recruitment process, how we discerned through their applications and our interviews that they actually were ready to move to the community or other or system level. So we gave them a sense of having been chosen specially for this training. And we supplied mentors to assist in the confidence-inspiring community service project. We also discovered again that families have a great desire for connection and for connecting the dots in systems. We knew and we'd experienced already, but we were reminded that families have tremendous grit and are willing to surmount family challenges in order to make a difference in communities and systems. And generally, unless something is acting up at home, they'll say, yes, yes, I can help with that. I'll do that. That's a good idea. And finally, we learned again that a well-told family story with an ask has the power to change hearts and guide legislation. I am in awe of what these trainees working with policymakers have accomplished in their communities and at the state and national levels. Their success is not due solely to this training, of course, because they brought many gifts to the course and they continue to hone their skills. But for many trainees, I hear that this was a turning point. They could use, I think maybe the biggest discovery was that they could use their experience of being a special needs parent, stressful and difficult in so many ways, and also very beautiful, to benefit others. The training is only 10 years old. Our graduates are just getting started. I'm watching to see what they do. I'm tremendously grateful for having had the opportunity to work on the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute. I have the honor of talking about its evolution today, but there are many people in the room or listening or at work today and not able to do either who made huge contributions. And so I'd like to go through, I'd like to acknowledge them publicly, and if I call your name, please stand. And I'll mention that I'm only acknowledging the CHSC affiliated people who helped us. I look out and I see representatives of family organizations and other institutions in the state that were so helpful and were partners. And I think Diane, you're going to acknowledge them later. But I'd like to acknowledge first Dr. Deborah Waldron, who may or may not be listening, but she was among the first to acknowledge families as leaders in CHSC and was committed to developing the family voice as a way to create public policy. This was not charity. This is because policy is better when we're talking to the people who are affected by policies. I'd also like to mention Dr. Tom Scholes, Dr. Vanessa Curtis, Vicki Meany, Barb Call, Jennifer Cook, and Jean Willard, and Nate Muller, the money guy who always seemed to find the money. And I'd like to also acknowledge our IFLTI collaborators, and please stand when I call your name. Sharon Rettinger, Rochelle Swanson-Holm, Diane Brenneman, Rachel Charlot, Jody Ballard, Allison Drew, and Sean Whitrock. And indeed, the entire family navigating group. And are there graduates here? Please stand. The IFLTI graduates, Dawn? Dareen. And Jody.
And actually, Allison took it before she was employed.
That's right. Allison, thank you for standing. We've learned so much from you. IFLTI evolved, I'm almost done.
Yeah, no.
In a particularly verdant season of family professional partnerships. But building true family professional partnerships in any agency at any time is never out of season. Thank you. Okay.
Martha indicated that I should pick up on a few of the later things, and I have a practice of always doing what Martha says. So I'll try to summarize a few of those things. We did continue to learn and grow IFLTI. We learned that families told us that training is a form of self-care. And while they initially might feel like, oh, I can't get away from my family who needs care, when they made that arrangement and could do it, they really found that the collegiality with each other, they found their tribe, They form Facebook groups and continue as a tribe by year afterwards. We also learned that families deserve to be stipended for their expertise and their family story. So later on, we began offering stipends for their time that they're giving to us. We grew in diverse recruitment and added interpreters and three-way mentor participant interpreter video calls, which was a kind of technology that was about beyond us, but trying to increase the diversity of our group, and learned that diverse recruiting really takes individual connections, much like those who are hesitant to be leaders. We experimented with in-person and virtual. We experimented with one-to-one mentors and staff as mentors. We researched the effectiveness. After a while, we thought we should have some data to show that this is effective. And so we created a poster for our Association of Maternal Child Health Programs. And we asked parents if, in fact, they had grown, and showed that they all said they did improve in their confidence in their leadership. After IFLTI, they improved their confidence in their advocacy skills and in their ability to form partnerships. So we think more research should be done, but we're grateful for that. We did present several times at our national conferences in the state, Family Voices, Governor's Conference, and our grads now are beginning to present at conferences. They are asked to speak at the Public Health Conference, at Family Voices, at Ask Resource Center, Together We Can conference. We continue training called IFLTI 2.0, which is kind of continuing education. So we continue to try to resource our grads. We have a Day on the Hill advocacy training every year. We offer storytelling training specifically for that 10-minute oral story or a digital story that Tom was talking to. And a new thing this year is we have a community of practice where grads come together to share their best practices with each other. We have consulted broadly across the country with other states, both as we were forming it, but also after it was going. Other states wanted to know what we were doing, and Kansas came lately and attended with us, and now they are modeling their own family training in Kansas. This year, they hope to send a couple of participants and their Title V director to learn how they can set that up for themselves. The real gem of the IFLTI is the Community Service Project, where each participant chooses a project that addresses a gap in the system. And this has become kind of a leadership lab where they practice their communication, their conflict management skills, practice telling their family story, practice forming partnerships. We are very strict about not letting them do a community service project without a partner, because the whole point is to work with others. And that's a tough one for some folks to get, but they get there. So some of the projects have included sports buddies, so everyone can play, Little League, adaptive 4-H programs, school bus driver education, training for churches who want to include all children, a nonprofit that provides augmentative alternative communication devices, ACC devices, adult-sized height adjustable changing spaces for toileting dignity, projects that protect eloping children and ease interactions with emergency personnel, resources for teachers and paraeducators. And beyond IFLTI and their projects, our grads have taken on things like being the head of Hands and Voices, the ARC, DD Council and advisory boards. They serve on things like that. One grad passed some legislation with a legislator that prohibited discrimination for organ transplant. They traveled to DC and testify at Congress. Families are taking seats, which was our goal, at the table where decisions about their children are being made. And we are so grateful for that. There is a handout on the back that highlights the history of the families being influential in the history of the disability movement, where families who noticed something was not right gathered around the kitchen table and decided to partner together to create change. So that's a little update for CHSE. I mean, for IFLTI. Is there anything I forgot, Martha?
It's amazing.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you again. We're going to transition now to hear from our grads, and I will stop sharing. You might need to help us get Anita Carrasco to share her PowerPoint. If she can't do it, I do have her slides from here, but we're going to hear now from some parents themselves. Dr. Anita Carrasco is from Decorah. She's an anthropology professor at Luther College. Anita, if you want to go ahead and share your PowerPoint while I'm introducing you, that would be good.
It doesn't
I should.
let me. It asks me to open system setting. So
It won't let you share?
so you can
I don't have it blocked on my end.
We go to, yeah, if you click on like the three dots next to her. Make co-host.
Oh, that's the issue.
Okay, try again. That should hopefully help.
And can you pin her too, so she can be
Yes.
seen? So Anita is she teaches anthropology at Luther College. She is an IFLTI grad in 2022, and she interviewed a number of ordinary moms for an upcoming book that she's going to publish. She will also share a brief history of the families who came before for us. Can you share now, Anita? Okay, I have it here on my desktop in case this happens.
Try again, Anita.
Okay.
You said to try one more time.
It shows me allow Zoom Workplace to share your screen. It says open system settings.
Okay, so I'm going to show it from here, and I will advance it as you talk. How will that be?
Yeah. Should I'll just tell you next slide.
Without a little tech problems, right? Okay. Oops, can you see that?
I can see it. So I'll just have to ask you to go to the next slide.
Okay.
When I
Oh, I see. When you're ready, yes. I'll
yes,
try.
you can go back. Yes. Okay. Should I get started then?
Yep, you make a start.
Okay, do you hear me?
We do.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great honor to be able to speak with you today. I'm one of the grads from one of the IFLTI trainings, and it was an honor to hear the previous presentations and be able to share a little bit of how the training impacted me and what I did with it. The title of my presentation is Invisible Battles of, quote, Ordinary Moms, Stories of Disability Advocacy in Iowa. Next slide. So a little bit about me. I am the mother of a son with a disability, and I didn't know for sure, but I suspected my son was different from the age of 2. At daycare, he was the only child who wandered off to the corner to play alone, and he wouldn't eat the food that all the other kids loved. He didn't speak his first word until the age of 3, and it wasn't until the 3rd grade that he began two-way conversations. After several years and multiple failed medical evaluations, we finally received a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder when he was 7.5. So with a diagnosis in the system, I was made aware of the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute through my family navigator at the Child Health Specialty Clinic in Decorah. So I applied in 2021. At the beginning of my training, I was asked to reflect on 2 questions. What is your gift? And Second, what personal traits do you have that can benefit or obstruct your leadership potential? So through the process of becoming an anthropologist, I had practiced deep listening skills. So my gift, I was good at guiding people to tell me their stories, and I recognized the great potential of the stories I heard from other mothers in my cohort the year I did my training. We could have filled a barrel to the brim with tears. And that is how the project found me, a book documenting mothers' journeys parenting a child with a disability in rural America. My biggest problem at the time was my inability to ask for help. And it took me a long time to recognize I needed to ask for help. In disability advocacy, you don't work alone. Mothers of children with disabilities go into their parenting journeys, seeing a very different family portrait. They expect sporting events and family vacations, but those aren't a given. They have to reevaluate their own perspective on life. Next slide, please. And this is the question: what is a life worth living? These mothers spend many years in isolation, unable to break from the endless appointments, therapies, meetings. The stories about mothers of children with disability in Iowa provide a space for other mothers to learn about women like them fighting for their children's rights and to bring greater awareness to their unseen advocacy and leadership in the United States. Next slide, please. Amidst the fight for suffrage, it was women who founded the United States Children's Bureau in 1912. The first director was Julie Lathrop. Next slide, please. The first woman to ever head a United States federal bureau. Serving under her was Grace Abbott. Next slide, please. A pioneer for child labor rights and later a director of the Child Labor Division of the U.S. Children's Bureau. Martha May Elliott. Next slide, please. Was a pediatrician and specialist in public health and assistant director for the World Health Organization and an architect of New Deal and post-war programs for maternal and child health. These are some of the women that are part of a larger hidden history of disability advocacy. So this movement has continued to fight for healthcare benefits for all Americans with disabilities, quietly serving the entire country. Specifically, all the women I interviewed for my project, like me, took part in the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute. Next slide, please. In this training, each parent is tasked with the goal of developing a project that benefits the disability community beyond the needs of their own child. These women and the occasional father have created nonprofit orgs, developed programs to educate first responders, change legislation, and more. Next slide, please. Julie Beckett, as some of you have mentioned, was the leading figure of the disability movement in rural America before her passing in May of 2022, and crucial to any discussion about disability advocacy in Iowa. Julie used to advise, quote, "Make sure you're at the table, even if you're not invited, get to the table," end quote. A resident of Cedar Rapids, Julie's advocacy began when she fought to remove the bureaucratic red tape that prevented her from caring for her daughter, Katie, at home. Katie spent 3.5 years living in St. Luke's Methodist Hospital. Medicaid took over coverage of Katie's care after her parents' private insurance hit the 1 million benefit limit for coverage. But at the time, Medicaid program only supported hospital-based care, meaning her care would not be covered if she was discharged home. Julie Beckett, as we've heard, was not one to give up. So in 1981, she contacted Representative Thomas Tauke for support to pass the, next slide, Katie Beckett waiver. This legislation established a federal program that allowed individuals with disabilities to use Medicaid dollars to get health care while living at home. And in an interview with Joseph Shapiro of NPR, Senator Tom Harking, one of the chief authors of the Americans with Disabilities Act, said that Julie's daughter Katie was a symbol of what the disability civil rights law set out to establish. Quote, "It's about making sure that we don't separate out people with disabilities, but make them part of the families, making them part of the communities, part of the schools, just an integral part of society. That's what Katie Beckett fought for all her life." End quote. While Julie was alive, she would visit every Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute cohort to impart her wisdom. She would soothe the insecurities the participants felt about their leadership potential, whether that be their education, their money, or their intelligence. Julie's response to those fears were, next slide, please. Next slide. You don't have to be rich, loud, or famous to make a difference. I was just a mom, and I just did the next thing. Julie didn't know what the right thing was, but she kept trying one thing after the next in her forest to find solutions. Next slide, please. Through conversations with the IFLT mothers, a few ideas popped up again and again. The foremost thing was guilt. The mothers felt responsible for their child's condition, even though all of the disabilities present in the interviews were not related to preventable causes. Did they drink too much pop? Did they skip one too many prenatal vitamins or take one too many aspirins? And as Jillian Kaufman, one of the mothers, explains, quote, as a mom, you're the one that's responsible for them in those first 9 months. You feel like somehow it was during that time that something could have been different. It could have been resulted in something else, and the disability might be different or even not even be there. End quote. Guilt stretches beyond the womb. Have I done enough? One of the great burdens of advocacy is there's always more work to be done, and there are always things that may have needed to be done differently. Satisfaction is temporary. The phrase baptism by fire is used to express the shift in perception that happens when you have a child with a disability. It's a world full of challenges that goes largely unseen until you have felt the heat. You live with blinders on. All of the women recognize a change in themselves after their child was born. As Allison Drew put it in her interview, quote, I had to have a complete perspective change. I had to realize that I did not have a choice. It doesn't really matter what other people think. If they're staring at you because your kid is screaming, they don't know your story and they don't know what's going on. We have to push through that gaze together and try not to let it sway how we parent our kids. If my son was having a fit in public, I would get really anxious and become short and impatient with him because it was embarrassing. Eventually, I just had to switch my mindset. End quote. When disability becomes part of your life, you must learn to shift your perspective and to ignore the disapproving gaze bearing down on you. There is no neat metaphor for disability, certainly not one that can encapsulate the experiences of caregiving without, in some shape or form, moralizing the experience. The mothers are not Jesus carrying the cross because that casts the ones in need of care as a burden. Mothers are regular people. They're humans as mortal and fallible as you. On the most basic level, caregiving requires you to become comfortable with the bodily fluids of another person, a deeply intimate experience. All parents must be comfortable with vomit, poop, and all that jazz, but there's an expected time limit on it. At some point, those babies will become functioning people who can care for themselves. That is not a given for parents of children with disabilities. They may still be changing diapers when their kids are 25. On a larger level, there's a breakdown of social milestones. Suddenly, the women find themselves with no idea what the future holds for them and their child. The progress we have seen for disability advocacy in Iowa began with a mother simply wanting her daughter to come home. Julie Beckett fought for her daughter and all children with disabilities to have the right to be home. The privatization of Medicaid in the state of Iowa has undermined that right. As Dawn Graber's story illustrates, her daughter, who required 24-hour nursing care, had her hours reduced by MCOs, managed care organizations, looking to cut costs. Dawn and her husband had to choose between keeping her daughter at home with her family as skilled nursing care dwindled, or move her to a facility 2 hours away where she would be guaranteed skilled nursing care up to the age of 30. No parent should have to make that decision. That's why we did away with institutions and the Katie Beckett waiver was established. A home is not a privilege. These battles are never ending. And even after major victories like the Katie Beckett waiver, one must hold their ground. One mustn't get complacent because administrations change, and with them, their agendas and interests. Next slide, please. The stories I collected are 8 mothers' reports covering a range of disabilities: autism, Down syndrome, deafness, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, intellectual disabilities, and some parents simply just don't have a good diagnosis. Their experiences are the data, the findings, the perseverance of care. Next slide, please. These stories are about mothers striving to give their children with disabilities not just a life worth living, but a world worth living in. Next slide, please. The first story included in the book is Nancy Baker Curtis. She's a former school teacher who had to quit teaching in order to take care of and advocate for her son, Charlie. Charlie doesn't have a good diagnosis. He has intellectual and physical disabilities that impact every aspect of his life. He doesn't speak, and they're working on getting him to walk. Nancy goes through how she got involved in the Changing Spaces movement and how they successfully advocated for adult-sized changing tables becoming a requirement in all new public Iowan buildings. Charlie uses a diaper, and most rest stops do not have changing tables that can accommodate someone much older than a toddler. She talks about how she met with members of the Iowa government and tells the story of how she provided a picture of her son with his wheelchair next to her mother with her wheelchair and her father standing behind. She was stressing that this is about people. It worked. Next slide, please. Diane Lovan immigrated to the U.S. from Guatemala when she was 17 years old. She's a pastor at the Church of the Nazarene. Her second son, JB, has autism. Because of cultural and language barriers, Diane faced an extra layer of challenges to getting her son what he needed. Diane tells the story of how she learned not just to work through her own barriers, but how to also help other members of her community as well. She talks about how being handed a bunch of papers in a language she didn't understand really served as the fuel for her language learning. She started JB's Cafe in the kitchen of her church, which provides food service training to people with disabilities in a safe environment. Being a pastor, Diane weaves in how she came to understand and cope through her faith, as well as how to turn your challenges into something positive for the community. Next slide. The third story included in the book is Jillian Kaufman. She studied psychology and social work in school and works as a private practice therapist. Her oldest child, Maylene, has bilateral profound hearing loss and has cochlear implants. Jillian really digs into how disability affects both the little and big things in family life. Life is busy, and it gets especially complicated when your child has to be driven to therapies and to school, especially for deaf and hard of hearing kids. She talks about the struggles of trying to find what services are available and learning how to put your foot down to get what you need. She goes through the conversations around deciding whether or not to get cochlear implants done and introducing sign language to a hearing household. She talks about the emotional side of being a disability household and how she has tried to prevent some of the challenges that arise with it. Next slide, please. Emma Busu's journey to activism began in utero. The doctor initially said that the baby either had trisomy 13 or 18 and would die before or shortly after birth. When it turned out it was trisomy 21 or Down syndrome, the doctors assumed she would want to terminate the pregnancy, even going as far to bring in abortion pamphlets with them. But for Emma, Down syndrome was a blessing because it meant her daughter Ruby would have a life. In her chapter, Emma goes into her unconventional route of activism to get laws changed, including making it illegal in the state of Iowa to discriminate against people with Down syndrome on donor transplant lists. She's worked extensively with first responders and law enforcement to educate them on people with Down syndrome. She goes into how she's advocated for her daughter within the school system. Emma Busa is a woman who knows her power and she knows how to use it. Next slide, please. Heather Dirks works for the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Program as the Family Support Coordinator and worked for the Iowa Deaf Blind Project as the Family Engagement Coordinator. She has a degree in business administration, but because of her daughter, she had a change in her career path. Her daughter, Lani, is deafblind due to genetic mutations. One is called Tube 3. It caused her vision issues and her brain malformations. She also has another genetic mutation called HUWE1 that causes intellectual and learning disabilities. In her stories, Heather Dirks stresses the importance of knowing your rights. She teaches you how to be successful in an IEP meeting and how to put your foot down. Don't be afraid to be the bad guy if it means your kids get what they need. Heather also goes into the social challenges of having a child whose mental age doesn't necessarily match her physical age. She delivers a nuanced discussion of grace and grit. Next slide, please. Brittany Funston is the embodiment of the American spirit and dream. In her early 20s, she, along with her toddler-age son and infant daughter, were abandoned by her then boyfriend and left homeless. Her daughter has cerebral palsy and requires high levels of support. Brittany now is a local manager for a major cell phone company and has happily remarried. Brittany's story is one of resistance. She talks about how to maintain hope and the energy to keep pushing forward despite all the challenges life throws at you. Because she was a young mom, people tried to dismiss her, but she wouldn't let them. She not only fought, but learned how to turn her burning passion into something constructive. You have to put your feelings aside and learn to butter people up. Brittany proves what a mother's drive can do. Next slide, please. Allison Drew is a mom from Fort Dodge. She's the program coordinator for the Regional Autism Assistance Program. Allison has 2 children with autism, Elliot and AJ. She's also a part of a nonprofit group called Facing Autism and other programs with her church and community. Allison is a master juggler. Though both of her kids share a diagnosis, their needs could not be more opposite. She goes through the struggle of getting her first kid diagnosed and having to fight her way to a diagnosis, which was both satisfying to finally have, yet also a big leap into the unknown. For her second kid, Allison discusses her denial, yet also acceptance. Her story contains a wide variety of tribulations that are familiar to those with autistic people in their lives. Next slide, please. Don Graber's story goes through the surreality of coming into the disability world and how, because you're so often stuck in the position of having to fight, grief will creep up when you least expect it. She details her fight with the school system to get her son Sam the education he deserved. Sam has autism, is nonverbal, and has cerebral palsy. For her daughter Hannah, she describes what her experience has been with the medical system and how that changes when your child is medically complex, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, G-tube fed, and in a wheelchair. Her story has been deeply affected by recent Iowa legislation changes, forcing her to make decisions she wouldn't have preferred. Dawn's story is one of hard choices and getting back up again. Next slide. In closing, I want to dedicate this presentation to the memory of Julie Beckett, and I will leave you with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. Anita is actively searching for a publisher for this book, and we will let you all know when you can purchase your copy. I also want to say that some of the mothers who are interviewed are in this room. So we have Dawn Graber here, Diane Loven, and Allison Drew. Did I miss anyone? So thank you so much for sharing that perspective and hearing from those mothers. And Allison pulled together a reel of quotes and words from our grads, and I'll get that up here and watch that. And then we'll have some cake.
Emma and Jillian are both on.
You want to say hello, Emma or Jillian? Just unmute yourself and say howdy. Unlike Martha, they don't listen when I tell them to unmute themselves, do they? Okay. Here's our video. And actually, I think we'll hear from Jillian in here.
Congratulations, IFLTI, on your 10-year anniversary. I am very thankful I got to be part of your program. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication to connect parents trying to find the right path to advocate for their loved ones. The knowledge you share and the community you have created is so beneficial and forever lasting. Thank you for being there for my family and help us build the confidence and skills to advocate for our children.
Happy anniversary to IFLTI. This training was like a moment in my life where I wanted to say I developed the leadership that was inside of me, working with families and individuals with mental health and disability. Thank you very much to IFLTI.
This program has made such a huge impact on my life in regards to family advocacy, making connections, skills-based strengths, and how to hone into that as a person and apply it in whatever I do.
My journey with the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute began because I wanted to be a stronger advocate for my daughter, who is deaf. IFLTI gave me the confidence to not only support her, but to advocate for others across the state, which led me to serve on the Iowa Hands and Voices Board and the Iowa Commission for Deaf Services. It also empowered me to create change in our own community. At my daughter's school, we've raised awareness about deaf culture and communication, and our library has books featuring deaf characters and authors.
My journey into advocacy began 10 years ago when my youngest son Joseph was born. That experience sparked a passion that's guided me ever since. Through the IFLTI, I gained the knowledge and confidence to lead more effectively, not only as a parent, but also within my community. Today, I currently serve on several community boards, including the 2024 AEA Task Force at the state level. I recently started a new role as a Family Support Supervisor at Ask Resource Center, and I'm honored to have been elected President of the Board at the Helping Hand of Warren County, a local food and clothing pantry. I'm proud to be part of the change, and I know it starts with showing up.
This program has actually led me to the LEND program, which is Learning Education in Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. And through that program, which I just graduated of May 2025, I was a recipient of the Dr. Alfred Healy Leadership Award, in which I was able to put it towards my community project that I started in IFLTI.
The Institute has helped doors open for me because the classroom lessons and in-depth conversations gave me the confidence to open those doors. I've gone on to run for a school board position, currently president. I'm member of the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council and most recently joined the Medicaid Advisory Council as a beneficiary advisor. The Institute also played a role in my acceptance as an adjunct instructor at Wartburg College. A foundation of support was given to explore our family story, understand the role of advocacy, and be fearless to create a community that is supportive for all of us.
I participated in the IFLTI because of my involvement with the movement Changing Spaces Iowa. They helped me craft my story in order to highlight the need for height adjustable adult-sized changing tables. Most recently, though, I've been serving as the board president for the ARC of Iowa. I recently had the opportunity, along with my son, to testify in Washington, D.C. at a congressional spotlight hearing. Undoubtedly, my experiences with the IFLTI helped shape and prepare me for that journey. And while the outcome wasn't what I had hoped for, I'm still undoubtedly grateful to the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute.
I joined the IFLTI program in 2019, which taught me so much about disability rights, advocacy, public speaking, and the power of family involvement. I also had the honor of meeting Julie Puckett, a leader in disability rights. IFLTI has empowered me to continue my advocacy journey, and now I'm a family counselor at the Child Health Specialty Clinics. I've completed the Island program, and I now work as a behavior specialist supporting children with autism.
Because of this training that I received, I wanted to say that I become a better person myself, and a veteran to representing and advocacy with people with disabilities and my own Latino community and minorities, underserving communities. I have the confidence, I have the passion, and today I wanted to say I have the responsibility of leadership.
The growth that I have accumulated since being in the Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute has been remarkable, tremendous, amazing. Just the growth itself, the confidence that I have gained, the connections that I have made has been life-changing.
Thinking back on my experience, I'm so glad that I was encouraged to step out of my comfort zone and join this program. By taking this opportunity, it has got me out of my shell and into a community that was new for me coming from the East Coast.
IFLTI taught me that my life experiences have value outside the walls of my home. Because of the intense needs of my 2 children with severe disabilities, I was very isolated. Spending time with parents in this program reminded me that I was not alone in my grief or in my advocacy struggles and victories. I found and used my leadership strengths and celebrated the strengths of others. Because of IFLTI, I am no longer isolated, and I invite others to step out courageously with their stories.
Paladins, we are light bearers. And because we are emboldened, and because of your support, ANOD continues to shine. And for that, we thank you.
I was raised to be a take charge kind of person. If you see an issue, address it. If someone needs help, help them. But when I became a special needs mom, that part of me just kind of froze. I could still see issues that needed to be tackled, but I found myself looking around waiting for somebody else to step in and do it. Because of IFLTI, I recognize that I am that someone. I can step in and make things happen. And I'm not hesitant anymore. I ask the questions, I push for change. I step in and I reach out. Now I'm not only making change for my son, but I'm doing it for others. Because of IFLTI, I have a direction, and I am fearless, and I am unstoppable.
I am very grateful for everyone who has taken this course, as well as the staff members, providing a safe space for families to learn and grow and empower themselves to support their families and other families as well.
Congratulations, Iowa Family Leadership Training Institute, on your 10-year anniversary, and I'm so proud of the great work that you're doing to build leaders in the state of Iowa.
Happy 10th anniversary, IFLTI. Thank you for empowering families and inspiring change throughout Iowa.
Very difficult to talk after some of those testimonies, I think. I wanted to make a special thanks to several folks. This is not going again. That's okay. I think I can see it here. We had sponsors throughout our early years. We especially thank the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council, and Caitlin Owens is here. She's their director. Brooke Lovelace is their director. She was unable to be here. The Iowa's, did she join us all? The Iowa's USED, the University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, has been a partner from the beginning as well, and Caitlin is here. Ask Resource Center sent their congratulations. They weren't unable to be here. We had an early grant from the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, and also supported by a grant from HRSA, which we are very grateful for. This is the team over the years who participated, and Martha already made a stand, so I won't again, but it definitely is a team effort, and no one of us could do it alone. These are the legislators who over the years have come to be with us, and let us practice on them. Let us interview them about best practices for how to talk with the legislator and how to partner in the policy arena. As Martha said, at the end of every training, we had a family story to send us off with inspiration. And these are the family members over the years who shared their story of leadership and advocacy with the grads. This, I think, will run. We had many mentors, so much so that I had to scroll. Two of our mentors are here, Ray Miller and Susan Selvey. Without these people, people wouldn't have had a direct one-to-one support through their training, and we are very grateful for those mentors as well. And at the beginning, we had national speakers. And then, as Martha said, we transitioned to our own staff and state speakers with experts in. And so this is a pretty long list of people who came over the years to speak with us. I think that is all of the thank yous. Staff, did I miss anyone?
We have one more.
We do? Oh, you guys.
I have to take the mic. We would be remiss in the celebrations.
I'm gonna stand up on that one. I think that was. I don't really want to give you the mic, but
I don't want to take them. Without saying thank you to you and your leadership over the last 5 years. When Martha left, it was a hole, as you can imagine, and I remember us saying, it's like Mom is gone and now we are all alone, and what are we going to do? And Diane filled those shoes amazingly. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of nuts and bolts with a training like this. And Diane has been a wizard, and she's a tech wizard, and all the things that she needs to be in order to make this work. So we got you this clock. Not to put on.
You know how I like to stay on time, don't you?
Yes. Leaders instill in their people a hope for success and a belief in themselves. And that is truly what you embody. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now I'm going to call on Jean Willard, our program manager, and she has a bit to talk about the future.
I totally recognize for the people in the room, I'm standing between you and the cake, and that is not something I ever want to do. And for you people online, you're going to have to come up with virtual cake because we want to celebrate with you. Diane wanted to make sure we didn't turn this into a fundraising event because that wasn't the point, and it really wasn't. But we do want you to know that at the same time, there's a lot going on in Iowa, and as you may have noticed across the country, that has really required us to tighten our CHSC belt. As costs go up, our funding isn't really going up. So while we work to come up with a sustainable solution for IFLTI, we do find ourselves needing to raise some money for the upcoming year. So our specific ask, which this is an ask for a whole program, not a family, but if you happen to be in a position where your budget has a little bit of wiggle room, we do encourage you to make a donation through the University of Iowa Center for Advancement. The details are on this slide. There's also little handouts in the back of the room, if you're in the room, that you can take with you, because even if you don't have a little wiggle room in your budget, which we certainly understand, maybe you have friends or family who do. So we'd love it if you could share that. And just so you know, this funding is specifically earmarked for IFLTI, so it won't be used for other University of Iowa programs, but it is through the University of Iowa's fundraising thing. So thank you very much for coming. There are so many legends in this room. I'm in awe, and I'm very humbled to be standing in front of this group of people. Do you want to send people to cake or? Okay, I guess we're good. It's all about the cake now and talking and networking, and let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks again so much for coming. We will have the video of Julie Beckett, the whole video up here running if you would like to see that. And again, thank you for coming. It looks like we should maybe share all the screen hellos. But do help yourself. We've been sitting for a long time, and thanks so much for sharing with us.
All the great things you do.